All right, so we got a lot to talk about with Chapter 1152, Sai. We got a Conqueror's hockey discussion. We got a little bit of the Loki flashback. We got a little bit of Herald lore from 109 years ago. We also saw that Shanks had a tattoo of some kind on his elbow. But maybe the biggest thing is we got a major hint to the time dilation theory. So Scopper said that it was only 3 or 4 years since he last had a bath with Shanks. Shanks said that it's been 10 years. That's about a 3 times difference. We also learned in this very same chapter that giants are 3 times as old as humans, which we kind of already knew, but we got a literal confirmation that Harold was 45, or 15 in human terms. So Sai, I'm curious, do you think that time is actually moving slower on Elbaf than everywhere else in the world?
Yes. Simple answer, yes. Where it gets weird is, when you really think about it, right? Time moves slow here. I don't think that's exactly the case. I think it's mainly your perception of time. Mm-hmm. I think that is what moves at a slower rate.
Yeah.
Obviously Scopper is aging up naturally. He's not like getting some weird hyperbolic time chamber powers. I think when you're on Elbaf, you just do not know how long you've been here. Kind of like the seducing woods in, Whole Cake Island. It didn't really mess with your perception of time, but everything in that forest was kind of wacky, right? Mm-hmm. It threw your perception off. I think that's how Elbaf works as well.
Yeah, and
like,
that's
Oh,
continue. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, like, maybe the Struts are here for a week, and they're like, oh, like, it's actually just been a day. Like, maybe the sun just lasts longer in here, longer sun time, longer nighttime. It could be something like that, which I don't know how Oda would explain, but I think that is kind of what we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, and I like that call out to the Seducing Woods, because I've been playing Paper Mario on the Switch 2, because you can play the retro games on Switch 2 if you get the expansion pass. And so I've been playing, and I forget exactly what the woods are called, but there's, before you get to Boo's Mansion, there's a woods where, like, if you go the wrong way, you start back at the beginning. Like, you, like, don't know where you're going, you know what I mean? They purposefully make it hard to navigate, and it's kind of similar. But I think you're right with the perception thing, because I think the idea is that if you're on Elbaf, like, a year is going to feel like a year, but 3 years are going by everywhere else. Now, it's not that you're slowed down, from like a Foxy slow beam or something like that, but it's just that kind of similar to like the time dilation idea from like physics with a black hole, where if you're going like near the speed of light, like around a black hole, and you do that for a year, from your perspective, way more than a year is going to go by on Earth. Even like nobody's actually going like slowing down or whatever. It's just that relative time to each person is different. And I think it's the same thing, because it goes back to Louis Arnault's message at the beginning of the arc, right? Like, don't stay here too long. I think now we're learning that you don't want to stay here too long, because if you stay in Elbaf for a week, 3 weeks are going to go by around the world. And I think it's roughly a 3x because of the Scopper 3 or 4 years thing and the Giants, age. But, it might be a little bit different than that. But I think what's really, important about that, or where Oda might be taking this, is like it's kind of making Elbaf like a time skip in a way, but not the traditional time skip. It's one where, the world is undergoing a lot of change, while the Straw Hats, only think a little bit of time has gone by. And we know like the Holy Land is on fire now, which that might make a lot more sense if multiple days have gone by, right? Instead of just the 1 day or whatever that we've been at Elbaf. So what do you think are some of like the major outcomes of this? Like what things have changed around the world, or once we leave Elbaf, what things are we going to learn and be surprised about? Like, wow, things have really changed.
God, that is going to be so fun. Just the endless possibilities. Also, before I talk about that real quick, one more hint that, time is perceived differently here. It goes back to Shanks, right? When Shanks first fought Kid, before he went outside, Shanks is like, oh, like, sorry guys, like, I must have lost track of time. Like, he dropped that one-liner in the very beginning, and it's like, oh, like, that's a throwaway line, right? Shanks simply got caught up in conversation, but now looking back at it, it's like, no, he didn't just get lost in conversation, he got lost in Elbaf's time, right? Like, there was something wacky going on back there, and even Shanks kind of, like, took heed of it.
I love that.
So, as far as, like, what to expect, I think there's not going to be a single faction that has been upgraded, or that has not been upgraded, sorry.
Yep.
Cross Guild, Neo-Mads, the Revs, Sword, I would argue even Wano, which, I have been a lover and a hater of Yamato's cover page journey. I love that she's getting one. Yamato for Nakama till I die. You know, like I am that guy. But let me tell you, that cover page is boring right now. But I do think Oda is saving, and he's going to like long wind that cover page story until we leave Elbaf, until we learn about time dilation. And one thing that I think would be really cool, I don't know how Oda would do this, but imagine we get a cover page story of Yamato, and, you know, she's doing something in there, right? Like she's delivering some onigiri to some orphan kid, you know, it's just something boring, right? Something along the lines with what's going on. And then Yamato shows up to the island in that same chapter. We're like, wait, what? Mm-hmm. And we learn that, you know, that happened like days and days ago, but Yamato of the current day is here already. Like, I think that'd be a cool reveal. That'd be kind of trippy. Or maybe like we get that with a different character. A character shows up to Wano, we're like, oh my god, they're in Wano. And then they also show up in Elbaf, and it's like, oh, it's because the cover page takes place 3 days ago. I think that'd be a fun thing to do. As far as what faction I'm expecting to really level up, Cross Guild. I think by the time we see Cross Guild again, they're going to have the Boa Hancocks, the Doflamingos, the Gecko Morias. Impel Down, I think, is going to get, unfortunately, broken into again. I think this is a brilliant way, but also a sad way, to time skip the rest of the world. To level them up to the level of the Straw Hats, right? Because Buggy said he wanted to go after the One Piece. Brother only has 0 poneglyphs. You know, he has none. Right. So he has to go to Zoe. He has to go to Wano. He has to go to Whole Cake. And I don't think we need to see it, because we could already expect Buggy to get all of those, right? Whole Cake, Brute Force. Zoe, he has connections. Wano, he has connections. He could just talk to him. And that's fine. And I would love to see that, but maybe Oda doesn't, right? Oda does want to move on with the series. There's a lot of factions he has to progress. And I think this is a better way to just do that. You know, we just leave and then boom, we're playing catch up again. And I think that's what people are going to really look forward to. You know, everybody has their favorite faction outside of the Straw Hats, and just seeing what they've been up to, seeing how they've grown or how they didn't grow, I think will be a lot of fun. And like I said, Cross Guild, Gecko Moria, man, that's where I'm at. Give it to me.
I agree with you 100% that Cross Guild is really the one who's going to benefit from this the most. And, you know, you brought up Impel Down, and I'm really glad you did, because I think that's one of the major things that Oda's going to do, because, you know, you think about Impel Down 1.0 with Luffy. Technically Luffy's kind of Impel Down 2.0, because Shiki was the first one to break out, but, you know, we're going to ignore that. The Impel Down 2.0 that most people talk about, I think it would make a lot of sense for Oda to kind of skip through it, because we already saw the first one. Like, and don't get me wrong, there's probably some cool moments that Oda can like flash back to at some point for Impel Down 2.0, but we don't really need to see that in real time, right? Like it can happen. Then we're like, wait, there was a big breakout, and then Buggy or Bon Clay or somebody can be like, oh yeah, here's what happened, and we just get like a quick run through, right? That's way easier from Oda's perspective. And also, you kind of touched on this, and the way I would phrase it is, it lets Oda update his chessboard without needing to make it feel like super legitimate, you know, because like if time is all moving at the same pace everywhere, then it's kind of like, okay, well, I have to make it make sense. Like Buggy can't go around the world in a day and do all this, or Impel Down's not going to get broken out in 2 hours. Like it's going to take a while, and all these different, you know, plot lines that are around the world. The Holy Land, like, you know, I think a lot of people, including myself, were like, you know, the Revs were just there. Are they really going to go back and start another conflict? Well, if it's been a lot longer than we think, that's a totally different ball game, you know. So I agree with pretty much everything you just said. I think Cross Guild's really the one who stands to gain. And going back to the Yamato cover story, you know, we've talked about this, I think, on this channel, but in the last cover story we had with like it was the Germa one, but where, you know, it was Whole Cake one basically, and Kuzan and Augur went there, and they got Pudding in that cover story, the same chapter that we saw Pudding on the ship with Blackbeard. So Oda merged the cover story with the real story at the same time, like he lined it up. And I think that's probably why Yamato's cover story has dragged on the way that it has, is that Oda's wanted to line that up so that Yamato finishes the pilgrimage, and whatever happens in that cover story that's really important can happen at the right time with the manga. And remember, Yamato's cover story is like complete now. Like the original journey is pretty much done, right? Like the pilgrimage to the different areas. Like Yamato's been to all the areas except Ringo, I think, but that wasn't. Yeah. But it already said mission complete or whatever, right? So like we're at the end of what Yamato set out to do. right at the same time that we're learning that time dilation could be a thing, or at least we've had the strongest hint that it could be a thing. So I think you're on the money there. Whatever Yamato's cover story is, which I think it's a Kaido and Big Mom thing, whether they're still alive and Yamato finds them, or whether Yamato finds out they already left, and whatever, who knows? Something's going to happen that's really important. Or Pluton, something, Blackbeard pulls up, whatever it is. It would make a lot of sense for Oda to line it up with the time dilation, so that it makes sense that, Yamato is able to, if Yamato does show up, or maybe we find out maybe Blackbeard pulls up with Pluton, and we're like, how'd you get it? And it's like, oh, well, actually, it's been 2 weeks or whatever in real time, so there's been time. So yeah, dude, I think if this is true, it's going to be one of Oda's greatest, in my opinion, greatest moves. Now, he's got to explain it, though. So that's my next question for you. How? Like, well, what's going on? Like, because the giants also, if they live to be 3 times as old as humans, they seem to be affected in some way by the same time dilation, where it's a little bit different, because even if they go away from Elbaf, they still age, 3 times, like, as long as humans. But regardless, there has to be some connection, I think. If time is moving a third as fast and they live to be 3 times as old, there seems to be something going on there. So do you have any theories for what the explanation is?
Yeah, and I just gotta preface this, but there's no good answer to this because we have very little information. So I'm kind of shooting from the hip when I say this, but I think that the giants, all giants, they used to be humans thousands of years ago. I think this is going to be one of those really wacky islands on One Piece that you just can't really explain. It's going to be like a natural phenomenon. And the people who originally lived on Elbaf, I think they were all humans that got distorted and became giants over time because of the weird perception, because of the 3 times difference. And they just never really noticed. And it kind of goes back to what we all talked about at the very beginning when we got Louis Arnaud's message. Why did none of the giants mention this, right? Why did Scopper not say anything? Why did Dorian Broggie not say anything? If there really is time dilation here on this island, if there really is, something bad here that we shouldn't linger around for, why are they not saying anything? Well, it's because maybe they do not perceive it. It's kind of like Scopper when he's like, oh, like, has it really been that long? Like, even though you know that it might be a thing, you can't really put your finger on it. It's kind of like when you have a dream, you wake up and you're like, wait, what was that dream again? Like, what happened? I think that is how time dilation works here. And that is why, like, it might not be common knowledge that giants used to be humans. And then by living on this island for thousands and thousands of years, their bodies adapted to it. They adapted to Elbaf's weird mechanics. It could be because of the island itself. It could be because of the Yggdrasil tree. I think there could be a lot of, like, explanations for it. It's One Piece, right? Oda could just whip something brand new up, and we'd kind of accept it. I like referencing movies all the time, because Oda, he has a hand in all these movies, right? He usually gives out a couple of ideas. Sometimes he's on the board even. Sometimes he writes the story. And I think back to film Strong World, where we had those people living up on Shiki's Island. They're all people. But because they lived on those islands and because they wanted to leave Shiki's domain, they eventually grew wings on their arms. It was their desire to leave. I think that could be the same thing here in Elbaf. They simply wanted to live longer. Maybe that's what the initial dream was. Humans came here to live longer. It was their fountain of youth. Or maybe they came here to, extend time with loved ones. And then because of that, their bodies got extended. Their lifespans extended. I think it could be as simple as that. Kind of like how, like, up in Skypiea, if you live in the sky for so long, you get wings, right? I think it's going to be something along those lines. And hell, it could even be like a sun god thing. Maybe the original sun god just let the sun stay up longer here, and that's why these days are perceived differently. Which sounds a little bit weird, but I mean, we're talking about, like, an actual god, so why not, right? Or, we have Long Ring Longland where everything is free and stretchy. Yeah, if you tell me the days last long here, I mean, it's the least craziest thing in One Piece.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good segue there. So, Long Ring Longland. So one of my big theories on that, and we still have a lot to learn about a lot of this, but my claim to fame, my biggest video was about how
I love that
that might be part of Joy Boy's awakening, and maybe the effect is just spreading to the other people, and that's why even like the peaks of Long Ring Longland, they're like kind of stretched up. You know what I mean? So it's like, did Joy Boy come here and permanently stretch it and it just wears off on people? Because if that is true, which we don't know it is, but if it is, then I'm wondering if Toki's fruit could have something to do with Elbaf in the time issue. Because think about this, like, Toki got her fruit during the Void Century. She was born during it, right? So that would then tell us, okay, well, somebody had the time fruit before her and nobody after her, or at least maybe in current time, assuming Toki is actually dead, which we are led to believe. I still have a little bit of doubt because no body, no death, and there's still that thing where she got like hit with the arrow, and I don't know if you were reading week to week back then, but there was so many theories about how, now that we saw that arrow, we got to look for a woman with like a scar on her thigh, and then that's going to be her. So, and with the time fruit, she could have just dipped out at any moment, you know? So like, if there's somebody who could be alive, I feel like it could be her. But but regardless, the point is, somebody had it before her, like before the Void Century. And we obviously know Elbaf has been around for thousands of years. We have the First World, Second World, Third World stuff. So I wonder if maybe the past user of Toki's fruit went there and awakened, which she has a paramecia, which is only supposed to affect, surroundings temporarily. So who knows how that all would actually go down. But I feel like that could maybe make the most sense, because going back to what you said about how, in Strong World, the people who lived in the sky grew wings because they wanted to fly and leave and all that stuff. It could be similar where, like, maybe the giants just, like, wanted to live long enough to stick around to see Nika. And going back to Toki's fruit, it could be the same thing.
Ooh.
Like Toki could just send them all into the future to go see Nika. But maybe what the effect of the time fruit does is it stretches the time out. So it's like, well, we'll get you as close as we can, right? Like, we'll make it go a third as fast so you guys can last, as long as possible. So that way you can make it kind of close. Because the giants are only like a couple generations removed from Joy Boy. You know what I mean? Like, if they all live to be as old as Jarl, literally like Jarl's dad could have met Joy Boy. Like that's how old they are. So
I really like that. They wanted to extend their lives to meet Nika one day. And the previous Toki no Mi user is the one who did all of this. That is kind of fire. I'm not going to lie, man. I like that.
I just came up, like the Toki fruit thing, that I heard a couple people say that, but the living longer thing to see Nika, that was from you. That because of what you said. I was like, oh, that actually parallels way too well. Because the giants
that is why I love these discussions, man.
Same. And you also, a thing that you mentioned was the, like, maybe the giants were humans in the past, right? Well,
yeah.
Think about the gigantification that the government has been chasing for hundreds of years, right? They've been trying to figure out how to gigantify people. Caesar tried it and kind of succeeded, but obviously with a lot of bad side effects and stuff. But the Ancient Kingdom has been built up to be like a better version of all these scientists that we've met in One Piece, like Vegapunk, definitely Caesar. And so it would kind of make sense that maybe the Ancient Kingdom figured out how to do it, and maybe a side effect of that is this time stuff that's going on. Like, and this is maybe, I don't know how this would all weave together, but this would maybe be my favorite parallel. Is you think back to Skypiea, where we had the trees that were infecting everyone, and the point of that of that situation was, hey, we got to cut down the trees. They're making you sick. And then that ended up going to the sacred trees that they ended up cutting down, and that made the Shandorians really mad. And so I'm wondering if there's a similar situation here, where maybe because of experiments from the Ancient Kingdom, maybe with the lab that we saw that's thousands of years old, or like at least 1,500, I forget what the math is on it, but it's really old. Maybe that somehow, like, they use the Atom Tree to affect everyone on the island, and that's really the source of this, is like the giants grew up near the Atom Tree, and it's like it impacted their literal lineage because they're around it so much. It's like you need like a certain level of exposure, to certain environmental things to actually get affected by it. So maybe it's just like the people who come to the island, time just moves slower for them while they're here. But if you live there and like you have a few generations of children there, then maybe that literally bakes into their DNA, where it's like, yeah, now you are moving at a third of the speed age-wise. Like, like I'm sure that a year for them still, like, it feels like a normal year, but it's just a year for them is actually 3 years elsewhere. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
But now the one little issue with that is, and somebody in the Discord brought this up. I don't know if it was Kush Daddy or Kanu or Vex or a combination of, but Oimo and Kashi, or one of the two, talked about how, like, after, like, when Dory and Brogy started fighting 100 years ago, Oimo and Kashi were like, well, after 50 years, we set out to go look for them. And then we got caught, by the government and had to work at Enies Lobby for 50 years. And so then that leads the question of, like, okay, so Dory and Brogy were definitely stuck there 100 normal years. But Oimo and Kashi are saying, like, they were at Elbaf for 50 years and then went out to go find him. And it's like, hey, do you mean 50 real years? Or, because 50 years for you on Elbaf, if this time dilation thing is true, those 50 years would be 150. So, like, Dory and Brogy would be way gone at that point. So that leads to the question of, like, the Giants might not be able to perceive the difference, but they might be aware of the difference in the sense of, hey, whenever we leave Elbaf, time, the years everywhere else are different than our years. Like, maybe years are Earth years, and maybe they have a new term like Elbaf years that are, like a different time frame. But
it could also be that a third party told him how long it's been. Kind of like how, Shanks came over here and said, hey, Scopper, it's been a decade. Maybe somebody came up to Oimo and Kashi and like, hey, your captain's been missing for like 50 years. And then they're like, wait, what, 50? Huh?
That's a good point.
And then that's when they set out to sail. Like, I think there's a couple of workarounds for that. So I don't think it's too big of a plot hole to where it can't be recovered. I think Oda could definitely patch that up with some, a little bit of groundwork.
I agree.
And one thing I'm kind of thinking about right now, you mentioned it, right? Maybe humans, they only start to feel the effects of this over time. And this kind of brings back a character who we know is the oldest human on this earth right now. Dr. Kureha.
My girl Kureha.
When we got the start of the King Harold flashback, 109 years ago, Kureha popped in mind. Because I'm like, okay, Oda, he's like a fentanyl fiend when it comes to this. Just a guy on the side of the road looking for his next fix. He loves tying plot points together. He loves bringing in characters. And I was like, dude, who can he bring in? 109 years, like, Scopper's not here, Roger's not here, Rox isn't here. Like, we could meet a couple of Holy Knights we've seen before. I think that'd be kind of cool, right? Because they're immortal, maybe some Gorosei.
Mm-hmm.
But if we had to meet a regular person, other than Mother Carmel, who, should be here as well, I think Dr. Kureha could be it. Maybe Dr. Kureha lived on this island for all her life. Maybe she's a couple of generations down, and we will see Dr. Kureha here just kind of chilling and hanging out. The Scopper of the old age, which I think would be a beautiful parallel, man. Bring Kureha into Elbaf.
Listen, you will hear no complaints from me. I've been on the Kureha agenda this entire arc. Because, like, we met Jarl, the oldest living giant. First thing you think of, oldest living human, Kureha. Where's she at? You know what I mean? And like you said, with 109 years, it's like, well, who do we know that could even be around back then? Like, Brooke wasn't even born yet, which is crazy. Well, yeah. Kureha was 32 back then. 30, like
prime,
a spry 32. And so a lot of people have had the theory that maybe Kureha was on Rox's crew, or Kureha was the doctor of some other pirate crew. And something I've always said, which, like, don't get me wrong, Kureha's the GOAT. Oda can make it work if he wants, but Kureha would have already been 100 years old by the time God Valley happened.
It's like recruiting your grandma.
Yeah, like, she's got to retire. Like, I mean, she's got better things to do, I feel like. I mean, I don't know. Be on Rock's crew, that's pretty top tier stuff. But you know what I mean. She's 100. She's got to go chill. So, but 32 years ago, that's plenty of time. And so, part of me really wants Kureha to be the giant warrior pirates doctor. Like, I don't know how that would work, because like it's a lot easier when you're like Gerd working on Scopper, because, like, I mean, you probably have more than enough equipment, and, like, it's easier when you're bigger than the other person. But if you're way smaller than the people you're working on, like, that's going to be real hard to do certain things. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
Whether you're suturing like a big wound or whatever, doing X-rays, like, you're not even going to have the equipment to do all this stuff. But it would still be cool. I have no issue with it. But the thing that I really like about it, and I'm glad you brought it up, is that Scopper and Chopper are about to have a discussion. And I've been waiting for this ever since Chopper was like, I need to figure out the secret. What's the secret? What's the secret? Because Chopper and Scopper, like, for one thing, Chopper's named after knocking down trees. Scopper's epithet, Mountain Eater, is about cutting down trees. People have had the theory that that Scopper, the Mountain Eater thing, happened at Drum Island. So if there was ever a time to weave all these things together, it's right now, man. Like, it is right now with Scopper and Chopper. We can get the full, like I don't know if it would be like a Kureha flashback. I don't know what it would be, but a full discussion on all that. So yeah, you won't hear any complaints from me.
When it comes to Scopper and Chopper, like, imagine how amazing it would be if they just bring up Kureha out of nowhere, right? Like, because we know that Scopper does travel around a lot, so maybe like now that Scopper's back up and at it, he finally drops a line. He's like, "Hey, I heard a lot about you, Chopper." And then, like, it's just a feel-good moment, right? It doesn't have to be super in-depth, right? It could just be like a simple, like Kureha was in King Harold's, crew back then. She was the doctor of Elbaf. I think that would just be sick in general. And with Brooke, for example, Brooke is getting just random backstory out of nowhere with Gunko. Love it. We always knew Brooke's backstory was a mystery. That's getting fleshed out here. W. I think the same now could happen for Chopper. And, looking at Frankie's getting his building, Usopp, he's in the land of his dreams, like Robin has her library, everybody's getting something.
Yep.
So I do believe that Chopper will get the Kureha callback. And when you think about Chopper leveling up, right, aside from like power feats, how is he going to level up his medicine game? If Kureha did work on this island, imagine she has her medicinal lab here. Maybe Kureha's Garden of Herbs. Like, I think that could just be beautiful. Kureha is a character we have not seen in a while. She is heavily relevant to the story. She knows about the Will of D. How does she know it? Well, maybe because she's been with King Harold. Maybe because she was with Harold when he went to the WG. Like, I think this is a perfect way to finally call all that back into question. And it's funny because, thinking back to the chronological order of the story, we were at Little Garden, we heard about Elbaf, we met Dorian Brogy, and then guess what happened? They got sick, and then boom, Drum Island. I think that just works so well. And Dr. Kureha was the one character who knew how to cure the illness that Nami got from Little Garden, which is, where the giants were. So Dr. Kureha coming in, curing this giant island disease, I think might have been... It's hard to call it foreshadowing because obviously it's like 25 years ago, but it could have been foreshadowing. Dr. Kureha and Giant Islands, 1-1. It's all right there.
100%. I mean, we all know that the pre-time skip mirrors the post-time skip, and I think a lot of people do that, like, kind of arc by arc, like, oh, this arc is the post-time skip version of this, and that's definitely true in a lot of ways. But even like the sequentiality of events, I think you can take into account. Like you're saying, Little Garden, someone got sick, led us to Drum Kingdom. Like those are kind of sister arcs in that way, right? So I'm with you 100% there. Now, the thing for me is that is Kureha actually going to show up? That's my big question. Is it just going to be a discussion about Kureha and maybe because I've been saying that, like, maybe the secret to beating the regeneration has to do with biofeedback, which I know in this chapter they're like Scopper's like, be careful with how you use Conqueror's Haki, which seems to show that's part of it, but clearly there's more to it than that, because Luffy's go back to Egghead. Luffy was definitely using Conquerors when he was in Gear 5th, and his hand was like throbbing whenever he hit Topman, so like, the regeneration was still working even when Luffy was in Gear 5 doing stuff. So we know there's a little bit more to it. Now, is it just stronger Conquerors? Is there more to it? Do you need to mix Conquerors with something? We still got to figure it out. But basically, I wonder, like, is Kureha going to show up? And especially because Scopper's hurt, is Kureha going to show up and help us learn something? Or is she going to come in to help fill in some blanks? Or just, what do you think? Is she coming?
So, I would love it if Kureha came. That sounds kind of crazy to say. But
whoa, pause.
I don't think she. Yeah. Whoa. I don't think she's gonna come here on Elbaf. I do think she's just gonna stay in her lane in Drum Island. She kind of has her hands full with Dalton, right? So I don't think she's gonna show up anytime soon in that regard. I think she will show up in conversation, and maybe even we'll get some notes from Loki perhaps. Once we all know and learn about this connection between Scopper, Kureha, Chopper, and King Harold. But I do expect her to come into play as... So, right now, sorry, I'm going to get sidetracked, but I see Correa coming in two different aspects. One, she could be the doctor on King Harold's ship or on Elbaf. Or two, we could touch on a theory that has been making the rounds, and I've kind of been perpetuating it as well. But maybe Correa worked with the WG back in the day. Like, who's to say that the Holy Knight that reaches out to King Harold initially is Dr. Correa?
Okay.
Because people have been saying that Correa is very witch-like, which kind of falls in line with the monster thematic of the Holy Knights and the Gorosei. So it's like, yeah, if Correa is like this supposed to be like witch character, you know, maybe if she does specialize in magic or something, I think that would be a great way to fit her in. But outside of that, as far as like how Correa is going to have her influence here in Elbaf with Chopper and Scopper, Chopper went after Scopper initially to find out how to hurt the Holy Knights. We learned it. You know, it's Conqueror's Haki. That right there is something that Chopper has no use for. He has no Conqueror's Haki. I do not think Chopper will ever be a Conqueror. But the thing is that really it? You know, did Oda really have Chopper chase Scopper all the way down here to learn that it's something that Chopper cannot even do properly? I don't think that's going to be the case. You know, Chopper and his Rumble Balls have been evolving with each and every arc. I mean, we saw it back on Egghead, right? Chopper gave Beppo a ball that let him mimic Sulong form for a little bit. Like, that was amazing. How did Chopper do that? We don't know. It's just off-screened. So I think there is a chance that, you know, because of Correa's, you know, former research, because of Correa's notes, potentially, Chopper will upgrade his Rumble Balls once more. And maybe he will be able to give the Straw Hats a workaround to hurting the Holy Knights. Whether it's Conqueror's Haki infusion with the Rumble Balls, maybe it's just a special concoction that Dr. Correa made because, you know, she's seen the Holy Knights, because she's been here on Elbaf. I think Chopper will definitely level up the balls for the gang. And then we could see, like, you know, the Strats who don't have Conqueror's Haki pop a pill right before battle, which I think would be kind of cool.
Yeah, I actually didn't think of it that way, but that's a really good point. And, like, because I agree that, like, Chopper's not going to get Conqueror's Haki this arc. Like, by the end of the story or in a distant future, like, could Oda write it in? Maybe, but, like, if people skip from no Haki to Conquerors, that's just, we can't be doing that. You know what I mean? So I agree, like, there's no way Chopper's gonna unlock it this arc. Probably never, but definitely not this arc. And so for Chopper to go there, it would be a little weird if Scopper's like, hey, here's how you do it. You have no idea what I'm talking about because you don't know how to use Haki or anything, and you can't really teach this without kind of understanding it, like doing it yourself a little bit. But here's how you do it. Like, that doesn't feel right. It feels like Oda would set that up so Chopper can actually have a role in it. Like, oh, that's how you do it? I, with my own doctoring ability, can help the crew learn this, right?
Yeah.
And that goes back to the biofeedback thing that I've been saying, because I feel like if it is like Life Return or whatever, and maybe you got to mix Conquerors with it somehow, which that would be, I feel like that'd actually be kind of cool. I don't know how that would really work, because you think about Semi-Kikon the way that we've seen it, where, like, you know, Lucci bulks up or Kumadori's controlling his hair, and then if you add Conquerors to that, I don't know, maybe that's how you can biofeedback on someone else's body. I don't know, but I think that would make a lot of sense, where it's like Chopper can learn that. He can't learn how to mix Conquerors with it, but he could learn that ability and then go tell the crew, hey, here's one element of it. You who have Conqueror's Haki, just mix it, and then you're good. And, like, I feel like that's a little bit of both worlds, you know what I mean? But building off of the Conqueror's Haki thing, I did want to ask you, did you notice how Sanji was, like, asking Scopper about the Conqueror's Haki, and then he had, like, a little bit of a reaction? Oh, that's the wrong page. There we go. Did you see that? How, like, let me scroll up just so everyone else.
The Sanji panels, dude.
Right here at the top. So, like, hey, old man, what about me? And then you can see on the left, Sanji has, like, a reaction, like he's surprised, right? But then later, he's not sulking later. So part of me thinks that it could just be that he asked that and then he got interrupted by Loki, and Sanji's like, oh man, like, you know, it's just him reacting to Loki freaking out. But I want to believe that he's reacting to the Conqueror's Haki thing. But then since later he's acting normal, I don't think he was told by Scopper that he doesn't have it, right? Like, if he just told him, no, you don't have it, you have 0, you have no chance, I think Sanji would be, like, really sad, right? So the fact that he had this response where he's mouth open, like, definitely a shocked expression. He's also all alone in this panel, which I feel like really builds the focus on him. So what do you think? What do you think Scopper told him there, man?
That's a loaded one. So one way or another, despite Scopper's answer, right, whether he told him yes or no or maybe so or I don't know, I do think Sanji will get Conqueror's Haki. I think it'll be kind of blasphemous if he doesn't, right? A Wing of the Pirate King, the Scopper parallel. If he doesn't get it, a little bit silly, right? Especially because, at least some of my favorite scenes in One Piece are when Zoro and Sanji do these dual attacks, right? Like Onigashima, where we had Sanji and Zoro coming up and, attacking King and Queen at the same time. That was epic. Love that. And now, imagine present day. We get a callback to that. Sanji and Zoro go over, they hit the Holy Knights, but Sanji doesn't have Conqueror's Haki, and his guy just gets back up and he doesn't care. It's like, okay, wait, whoa. We can't have that, right? They're always shown as, I wouldn't say equals, but Zoro is number 2. Sanji's number 3. I do not think that will ever change. Zoro and Sanji will always be neck and neck. So we cannot have Zoro just have this brand new ability that Sanji will never get, especially when it is vital in combat, right? If it's something small, like, Zoro's Ashura, I don't think Sanji's going to get Ashura. Like, I think that's ridiculous. Yeah. But, when it comes to Conqueror's Haki, something you need to fight these guys, yes, I think Sanji will get it. As far as what Scopper said to Sanji, though, that's a tough one. Maybe Scopper, because he's so similar to Sanji, Scopper has, the right words, you need to do this to unlock it. But there could also be a chance where Scopper's like, I have no clue what's going on with you, right? Because Sanji's not your typical character. He is a Germa augmented person. Maybe Scopper realizes that and he's like, hey, your Haki is just really odd. Maybe a fun thing I've been playing with is that maybe Scopper says, yeah, your body, unlike him, you're used to Conqueror's Haki, and then Sanji gets excited, but the reason why he has that shocked reaction, and the reason why, later on when you go with the chapter, Sanji's not sulking, and he's more so like, let's just go. It could be because of Judge. Maybe the way Judge built Sanji's body, it's more accustomed to King's Haki, which would be good for Sanji, because that means he has it. But it would be bad because Sanji would be annoyed because obviously he'd have to thank Judge for it a little bit. My body's used to it. Yay! Oh, wait, it's because I'm a Vinsmoke? Are you kidding me? I think that could be the case. And if Sanji were to unlock Conqueror's Haki, I do think it will be here in Elbaf. I've always been kind of mixed up until today. The past 2 days, I'm like, I don't know, Elbaf next arc. But when I really think about what is happening right now, right, with Nami being tied up, with Robin being tied up, all crying for help, the library's burning, they need a hero. Sanji, I think, is going to be that guy. And outside of them, because they're not in immediate danger, right? You could leave Nami and Robin alone for a while. Nobody really cares. The Holy Knights aren't about to execute them, is what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. But Ripley is after Colin right now. Who has Colin? St. Somers. He is shepherding the kids. I do not think St. Somers is going to lose a second time in a row. I think St. Somers is going to cook Ripley. I think Ripley is going to be... I wouldn't say she's going to die, but I think Somers is going to do his thing, a little bit sadistic. He's going to torture her. Your husband beat me. I'm going to beat you now. Mm-hmm. And I think it'd be beautiful if that is when Sanji steps in. Sanji steps in, saves his, Roger parallel wife, and because the woman is in danger, that is how Sanji gets Conqueror's Haki. And it is only when Sanji flips to his Germa mode, because when he does flip to his Germa mode, his whole mannerism changes. His tone of speaking changes. I remember back when we got the manga and even the anime, when Sanji fights S Shark, he talks like a king. He talks like a Vinsmoke. He says, in the Sanji nation, this is decree number blah blah blah. Thou shall not hurt a lady, or you will be executed. Sanji literally talks like a conqueror right there. You could argue that normal Sanji doesn't have it, but maybe, quote, Vinsmoke Sanji does, which is something that I think Sanji would be happy about, but also very annoyed with. It goes back to Wano, where he's like, I have to thank my family for this, for the Germa suit, and he even broke it, and then of course it just kind of lingered. So I think this is gonna be another Germa power up, which, if that is the case, I can see people slandering Sanji, which I don't really agree with, but a little bit for me, right? I think it's fun. It's fun.
Well, Oda's not making it any harder for those people to make fun of Sanji. You know what I mean? He's giving so many options here. Remember like last chapter where there was that line about how Rayleigh was the second strongest, and Scopper's no, I'm the number 2. It's like Oda does this on purpose, where he puts these little things out there. Yeah. And it's just to set the power scalars ablaze, but he usually gives Sanji the props later on. And I like to
imagine.
Sorry. You're good. And I love what you said about, I forget how you phrased it, but that Sanji's kind of Germa enhanced body might have his body equipped for it when he does get it, kind of like his Germa enhanced body is prepped for it, kind of like Scopper said. Like you, swordsman, your body is growing accustomed to it. It would be kind of cool if Scopper's well, your body's used to it, but you don't have it, to Sanji or something like that. And it's how does that work? And it's just Sanji needs to have some kind of mental awakening of some kind, or like you said, maybe he has to go save a woman he has to save a woman in an instance where only Conqueror's Haki would save him or save her, and so he figures it out in that moment. I actually would really like that, because by Zoro unlocking it and training with Enma, he's kind of ahead of the curve. And so if Sanji were to have to go through the same thing, he'd always be behind, I feel like. Where he'd have to kind of catch up and get his body accustomed. But if they kind of did it backwards, where Sanji's body is already, ready to do it, but he just hasn't unlocked it, and Zoro did unlock it, but his body had to get used to it. I feel like that's a cool juxtaposition there. So I'm actually with that 100%. And I do agree that Sanji will get it. The fact that Scopper has it and is being a teacher of it to a certain level, that's Oda has no choice at this point, I feel like, to give Sanji Conqueror's Haki by the end. That would just be rude at this point, And
for all we know, dude, how Luffy was hey, Zoro, your Conqueror's Haki, it's been oozing out, it's been leaking for a while now.
Yeah.
Luffy could literally say that to Sanji and it would fit. And the way it would fit would be because of Scopper, right? When Luffy first saw Scopper, his immediate reaction was, oh, this guy's like Sanji. This guy's literally just Sanji when he's older, right?
Yep.
We literally had the one-to-one where Luffy thought that. So it's what if the reason why Luffy thought that isn't just because, Scopper's a little bit of a perv, right? He's the Minister of Love. Maybe it's because of also the Conqueror's Haki. This old man has Conqueror's Haki, so does Sanji. Yeah, this is him. I think that'd be really cool.
And tying back to what Scopper told Sanji, I think another thing going to this idea of love is it could be you have something similar, you have a weird version of it or something like that, because maybe Sanji's we're talking about with saving women is based in love, and that was also going back to whenever he intercepted Kizaru's attack, and they were talking about rewriting the physics books because love is faster than light, or whatever they were saying, something like that. It would be cool if Scopper's you there's something, I don't know what it is, but you got something special, you got something different, and even if it still ends up being Conqueror's Haki in the way that it works in combat, it'd be cool if it was a little bit different than Zoro's, where Zoro's might be more of a bloodlust kind of Conqueror's Haki, where it's I just want to kill you, and then Sanji's is more I want to save you, and so there's that cool difference. Yeah, a protective Conqueror versus a attacking Conqueror, which, honestly, I feel like that's a little bit armament and observation Haki, a little bit, because armament can be used offensively and defensively, so it's not perfect, but I feel like most of the time, you're using armament to attack people, and you're using observation to dodge, right? And to detect attacks and to detect danger. One's more about hurting and one's more about avoiding hurt, right? And they can be used in the opposite, but I feel like that's mainly their thing. And since Sanji specializes in observation, it might make more sense for him to have a more defensive-minded Conqueror's Haki than Zoro would. So I'm with you. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah. It could also just be correlated to women too, he can read their emotions better, so he just knows who to go to the best.
Yeah.
It kind of goes back to the Sanji woman radar that we saw on Egghead Island, right? Well, it could be like that.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw it in the anime, but they went hard on the animation.
They did. That. It was like a sonar. It was like the dragon radar over there. I was like, wow, that's crazy, dude.
I thought that was awesome. And actually, I just realized it could also tie back to Kuina a little bit, where Zoro's experience with women to this point is an offensive one. It's the woman that I revere wanted to be the strongest, right? So it's I'm not worried about saving women. I'm more focused on being as strong as the woman that I knew wanted me to be, sort of thing, right? So like his relationship with women's more based in being strong, and Sanji's is more based in defending them. So I'm with all those ideas.
I'm so excited to see more about Sanji's mom, by the way. I mean, Sora, dude, I am a judge defender, but Sora's the one thing that's hard to defend. But we don't know, like, it's weird. We've never had a judge and Sora interaction, really. So it's like, I wonder. I wonder why.
Do you mean in terms of like it's hard to defend Judge in terms of Sora because he forced her to do it? Or do you mean it's hard to defend Sora because she kind of went along with it? You know what I'm saying?
Hard to defend Judge because he forced it upon Sora.
Yeah,
But we don't know that conversation, though, is my thing, too. It's like, we don't know, like, what kind of husband Judge is behind closed doors. Like, you know, like, for King Harold, for example, like, we see him, right? He's complete and utter scum. But we know that he changes. We know that something turns him around and he becomes a benevolent king, you know, a friend of Shanks. Mm-hmm. So I wonder, like, what was Judge like when he met Sora? Like who did she fall in love with? You know, what version of Judge was that? And also, like, what made Judge crash out afterwards, right? Because Sora was just, like, deathly sick after a while, so it's like, I wonder, like, what happened with all of that. Like, I think we'll get more backstory in regards to Judge and Sora if Sanji unlocks more, you know, Vinsmoke DNA abilities, which is another reason why I kind of push this, because, you know, I'm a big Judge fan, you know. He's a great guy. Fun guy.
Good, great. And, you know, we just had Father's Day. I'm sure Judge was having a good time.
Shout outs.
You know? Yeah, I'm sure Sanji sent him a cake.
Yeah, Sanji sent him some flowers. Thank you, Judge. You carried me through Wano.
Yeah, I got my enhancements. Thanks, man. Here's a cake. It's the same cake
it's like child
I
support
fed Big
after
Mom
all those years.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Next thing I want to talk about is Shanks's tattoo or mark, branding, whatever that is. Probably a tattoo. And we were talking about this before the stream, but it's important to note that, like, you know, Summers, there's too many Chopper, Scopper, and Summers. There's too many, like,
it's tough.
Similar names. Summers had a similar mark, and I don't have it to pull up, unfortunately, but he had a similar mark on his elbow, but it's different. Like, he had a different tattoo on his actual elbow, but he had that same mark as Shanks on, like, his like armband whenever he like actually put his jacket on and stuff, and I think Killing Him has the same thing. So that it feels like that mark could be like not the mark of the Abyss, but maybe like the God's Knight's mark, and maybe they are connected. Maybe there's the first, I think we talked about this, like maybe there's an evolution, like you get the first version of the mark, and then maybe if you join the official God's Knights, you get like another edition, like they build on like another circle. I don't know. We don't know enough about it, I feel like, to really speculate too much, but I guess I should bring up this first, that you know, in one of my videos, which I was wrong about the Shanks theory about it being Shanks because Shamrock exists. In that video, I did talk about how Shanks may have lost his arm because maybe he did have a mark that would have had him get controlled or would have influenced him in some way. And so maybe whenever he says he bet his arm on the new era, it's not just because of saving Luffy, it's because he also gave up like a source of strength that he had, right? And this also leads back to Blackbeard, because Shanks already had his scar from Blackbeard when he had his other arm, right? So he fought Blackbeard and got scarred when he had both arms, but then he gave up that arm. And so now I'm wondering, like, did Shanks only escape Blackbeard the first time because he had that mark? And so maybe Shanks was able to, you know, use a pentagram circle and get out of there. Maybe he had like a transformation to use. Maybe he had some regeneration that he could just tap into, right, to like get like, figure out Blackbeard, like so he could just leave because he can't defeat him. Whatever it is, I feel like Shanks losing that arm definitely nerfed him, because you also have the Mihawk thing, where Mihawk was saying like, well, I don't want to fight you now that you only have one arm, and we always kind of presumed, well, it's just you're stronger with two arms than one. But what if there's more to it, where that mark was giving Shanks some kind of power up, and Mihawk's like, hey, if you're not going to do the regeneration, it's not even worth it for me to do this. Like, I don't want to fight
That
anymore.
would be crazy. The upscale for Mihawk and Blackbeard, it's phenomenal, right? The stronger two-armed Shanks is, the stronger we perceive The better we perceive Mihawk and Blackbeard. I love that. And it's tough, right? Because like you said, we don't know what that is. It could be a mark, could be a brand, could be the mark of the Abyss, could give him powers, it couldn't give him powers. Like, we don't really know. All we know for sure is that it is very, very, very similar to what Sommers and Killingham has, but not one-to-one. Like you said, we're missing like an arch on it. We're potentially missing another circle on that, but it's very close. You could even say that because Shanks' mark isn't completed, because it's not the same mark that they have yet, that he doesn't have all the powers. Maybe he has a transformation, maybe he doesn't have regeneration. There's a lot of ways you could spin this. I think the fun answer, of course, is that he did have powers back in the day. He did have a transformation. Maybe he still can transform, right? Who's to say that the mark doesn't still exist, but somewhere on his body? But I think, I do think the Sea King did just take it all off. But then we have to ask the question, if Shanks can regenerate, why did his arm not regenerate? Did he not want it to? Did the Sea King have special, Supreme King's hockey that just ate the arm? Which would be kind of insane, but I do like that idea.
The Lord of the Coast scaling.
Yeah, Lord of the Coast scaling. He also gets upscaled. I think that's a fun idea, though, because, while the Lord of the Coast is a little bit of a loser, he is still a Sea King at the end of the day. And Sea Kings are intrinsically, fucked up that word, they're tied to Shirahoshi and Poseidon. So maybe, that's one of the reasons why being a Sea King puts you on that level, right? Shirahoshi can control the Sea Kings, and the Sea Kings are scary, not just because they're big, but because, they have that special power to stop regeneration, which would be kind of interesting, right?
That is really interesting.
I'm cool with that.
That is really interesting. Yeah, I haven't really thought about the Sea King's element of it all. There's probably some symbolism there with, Poseidon and stuff that, maybe Poseidon's, a bigger, nerf or, a anti-government weapon than we really think, So that's actually really interesting. I just pulled up the symbols here. I should have pulled them up earlier. I wasn't really thinking. But now I did get Summers. So you can see here, Summers' mark is a lot different than Shanks's, but in the other image of Summers, he has that same mark on his wristband, which when
he gets dressed.
So I don't know if that mark is for the regeneration, or is it for a transformation, or is Summers' mark, because I could reasonably see Shanks's mark being turned into Summers' mark, a good tattoo artist. Have you ever seen those, when somebody has a bad tattoo and then a tattoo artist comes in and is able to turn that bad tattoo into a work of art? It's wow, how did you merge that past one into this one? There's no way. I could definitely see somebody doing that. And actually, how the Gorosei have their own clothing designer, Niornio Armani? They might have their own tattoo artist as well. I don't know who that would be.
I am so impressed you pronounced that guy's name correctly. I know it's a play off of words of, Giorgio Armani, but still, I was wow, you knew that off the top of your head.
It's hard to forget, man. And you know what's even harder to forget is that guy's face. I can't forget that.
They're so cursed. Him
super cursed.
And there's another Marine who goes around and he takes all the bounty posters, right? He takes the pictures for them. I forgot his name, but he's also very cursed. These characters that Oda brings up and that we'll never see, they have the craziest designs.
Yeah. I mean, that's One Piece for you. You know what I mean? And actually, speaking of designs, I did want to say this. I said it during my reaction, but Scopper's middle-aged design.
Oh,
it's fire. He could be in a movie. He could be the star of an action movie.
He should have stayed like that, to be honest. I mean, Rayleigh looks great for his age. Scopper, he looks good today. Don't get me wrong. He still looks great, but he should have looked like this, right?
Yeah, he
should have looked like that.
Yeah, this up here in the top right, oh, dude. I don't know. It's such a cool design. He could be the MC. You know what I mean? That's just that's a fire design.
He looks like a mentor at that point, right?
Yeah. But going back to Shanks, so we also heard from Shamrock that Shanks went back to the Holy Land for a little while, right? And Shanks realized oh, I don't want to live up here. I want to live with the commoners. I forget exactly how Shamrock worded it, but it was that he left the Holy Land. And so, and we also had Shanks here talking about I wanted to be a carefree pirate with Buggy, and he has a different plan or whatever. So I'm curious on your thoughts on that, as far as do you think Shanks, did he maybe just go to Marijois to go, so he, I don't know if he had to get this mark in exchange for getting information, or if maybe he just wanted this power up. Like, I don't know what his reasoning is, but do you think he went up there, like, with a specific plan? As far as, like, I'm only going to go up there until I get, you know, certain piece of information, certain power up, whatever it is, and then I'm going to bounce. And then how does that tie into what he's doing now? You know what I mean? Like, how does that tie into, like, he just decided to go get the One Piece. So, like, he left the Holy Land, but then didn't go for the One Piece right away. He waited until very recently to finally go for it. So I'm just curious on your thoughts of just kind of the order of events, or why he made those decisions. Because I think that's a very... It's gonna be a massive thing for the end of the story. You know, like, that whatever Shanks is deciding here, like, in my mind... Maybe he went to go learn about Nika, like when the next Nika is supposed to appear. And then he's like, all right, now that I know that, or where he's supposed to appear, maybe like they said, oh, he's going to be born in the East Blue. And Shanks like, all right, that's all I need to know. And he just like went out and just camped in the East Blue for the next while waiting for him. So what do you think? Any theories on that?
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's very open-ended. When it comes to the Child of Destiny, Shanks... Obviously, he's visited Merijois a couple of times, more than once, I would assume. I think he initially went there not to learn about Nika. I think he went there for what Doflamingo talked about, the treasure of the Holy Land. Whatever Emu has up there, I think that is what Shanks was after, initially. He was after that initially. He was biding his time, you know, pretending to be one of them. Which you gotta say, like, I think Emu, by the way, and the Holy Knights, I think they also know that Shanks is the Child of Destiny. Because when you think about it, right, Doflamingo, the minute Doflamingo and his family, the minute they left the Holy Land, they were not welcome back. Mm-hmm. Right? No matter what, they were not welcome back. Even though Doflamingo was a kid, and he still had Celestial Dragon tendencies, he was not welcome back. But for Shanks, a kid that grew up with a pirate, a kid that grew up with Gold Roger, the king of the pirates, they let him back in and gave him the mark. Shanks is special. I think everybody knows it, and I think there's something about his lineage that just that gives him that sway. As far as like what he was there for, I do think it was just the treasure. And then the minute King Harold died, and the minute that Elbaf's treasure was stolen, I think that's when Shanks changed his potential mission. It went from, oh, like, I'm gonna bide my time and steal this treasure, to, ooh, I'm gonna take that treasure instead. And of course, you know, we didn't really get into it, but I think that the highest chance of likelihood is that the treasure, the devil fruit that was stored in Elbaf, I think it was the Gumu Gumu no Mi, the Sun God Nika fruit. Because one year after it's stolen, Shanks finds who's who, beats him, takes the fruit, and then Luffy eats it. We don't know what Shanks is going to do with it, right? We don't know if Shanks is going to eat it himself, deliver to... he wouldn't deliver to the Holy Land because he just let who's who do it. Or if he was going to bring it back to Elbaf. But I think when Luffy ate that fruit, it again changed Shanks's destiny. It changed Shanks's objective, because when Luffy ate it, I think that's when he was like, you know what? Yeah, I don't need this arm anymore. You know, I'm gonna entrust this to the next generation. You know, fate decided that this kid is going to be it. And as far as why he decided to go after the One Piece today, again, I think it's because of Luffy. I think he realizes that Luffy's the real Child of Destiny at this point, right? He passed down that title to the next generation, because right when Shanks says, hey, Ben Beckman, let's go after the One Piece, right before that, like literally one page before, he's looking at Luffy's bounty poster. He sees that Luffy has awakened, because that bounty poster is Gear 5th.
Right.
So I think that is what Shanks has been biding his time for this entire time. He's just waiting for somebody to make that move to take down Emu. I think Shanks could. You know, I feel like he would have tried if he could. But one way or another, I think he just needed Nika. There's something special about Nika, obviously, right? That is required to take down Emu. And, you know, it's funny because, you know, we're talking about, like, Mihawk upscale, Blackbeard upscale, Lord of the Coast upscale, but I think there's also Emu upscale. Like, if this is something that Shanks had to work around, you know, like, oh, you know, Shanks isn't just going over there and fighting Emu right away or fighting the Fagarlands. It's like, oh, like, he really had to just play as a double agent instead. You know, like, that's speaking volumes for, like, what the WG has under their belt.
It is interesting that right when Luffy eats the fruit, Shanks is like, I don't need this arm anymore. And then right as Luffy awakens the fruit, he's like, I'll go get the One Piece. Like, it's It does, like, the sequentiality of all that, and you also pointed out, right after this Herald thing, it was like a year after, or I mean, maybe months. One Piece works in years, not months, so everything is like, acts like it's a year separate, but who really knows? But this Herald thing happened 14 years ago, and then the Who's Who thing happened 13 years ago, so those are very close. So I agree, like, all these timelines line up almost too well, where it's like, Shanks obviously is, like, routing his life around the return of Nika. I don't know if it's, like, obviously he wants Nika to come back, but I don't know what the reason is. Like, does he just want the Dawn to come, even at his own cost? Like, if losing his arm means he's not going to get to see the Dawn because he dies? Like maybe in some ways that mark was going to protect him whenever Emu does something. Maybe that's how this is going to work, is like, if you have that mark and Emu does like a Shadows Asgard level thing from Moria, like maybe like a whole global thing where Emu's like taking people's souls or whatever, maybe that mark would have protected you, and Shanks is like, now that Nika's back, I'm good. Like, there's so many different potential things there. But something you mentioned, which I was really excited about, because I was hoping we could segue into this at some point, is Elbaf's legendary Devil Fruit. So this is something that I haven't posted any big theories on. I've been kind of waiting. It's kind of like the Man Marked by Flames. Like, I waited like a whole year to do a theory on that, and I felt like super strong about it whenever I finally did it. And now I'm also glad I've been waiting for this one, because I have a couple good options. And you brought up the idea that it could be the Nika fruit / the Gomu Gomu no Mi, whichever name you prefer, because Road to Laugh Tale did have both in the same thing. But the problem with that, at least on the surface, is that the officials said that Loki ate that fruit. So he already has it. And so it can't be the same exact fruit that Luffy ate. But something that I've been throwing around, that I've been on this agenda for a while, even before the Loki thing, is like, what if there is a Gomu Gomu no Mi and then a separate fruit that is the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika? Like, they're both rubber fruits, but just one's like a Paramecia version and one is kind of a zone version, and both of them make you rubber, but maybe the Gomu Gomu awakening is, and if this was the case, I know we're kind of in the weeds here, but if this was the case, I think Luffy would have the actual Gomu Gomu no Mi Paramecia, and I've done a lot of videos on why I think that fruit is a Paramecia, not a zone. And then I think Loki would have the zone, and so that they both are the sun god, because like we saw with Bonnie, there's not only one fruit that does this. There's multiple fruits that can give you Gear 5th, right? And so since Bonnie kind of broke the mold in that way, I feel like the chance of there being a second rubber-related fruit has skyrocketed, in my opinion. And so the reason I like this idea that Luffy just has the Gomu Gomu and Loki actually has the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika is that, like, it would be funny that Loki is the sun god because he has that fruit, but also not really, because it requires the right will, where like Luffy has the right will. And it's kind of like with Bonnie, where like, if you have the right will and you can reach Gear 5th, does it matter if you have the Nika fruit specifically? Like, is that even a big deal at that point? Like, what difference does it make, right? If you're in the same state as the other person. And I think this would be really fun because, you think back to like Shanks going with Who's Who and everything. It could be that like Shanks was kind of pulling a fast one on everybody, or I don't know. There might be more people than just him pulling a fast one, depending on the allegiances and everything. But it could be like that. Maybe Shanks went and got that and like kind of told the government, like, hey, yeah, like I stole that fruit. And I don't know when he would have told him this or whatever, but like how the government right before Luffy awakened, they're like, oh yeah, actually the Gomu Gomu is actually this. Like, what if it was Shanks who told them that? Like, hey, Luffy doesn't actually have the Gomu Gomu, which maybe is a real fruit. And I know we have the word about like the encyclopedia hasn't mentioned it, but regardless, it's like maybe. And there's also like the duplicate fruit idea potentially. But I just like the idea that they both have the rubber fruit. Shanks pulled a fast one and is like, hey, yeah, that fruit isn't, or like it is or isn't the Elbaf fruit that you thought it was. Like he maybe switched them at some point. I don't know, lied to the government. Something like that. Because like I said, with Loki already eating it, at least that's what the official said, it can't be the Nika fruit. But with Elbaf's focus on Nika, that would also make a lot of sense. And if it's not that, And I don't think I did a great job of explaining that. I have a better theory that I've been cooking on that. But if it's not that, I think the other option is that it's a shape-shifting owl fruit because of Biblo.
Okay.
Because remember in this chapter when like Luffy asked Loki to join, and right away it was Sanji or Zoro's like, "Oh, he's not going to fit on the ship." Well, if Loki really does have the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika, and Luffy's is just the Gomu Gomu, well, if you have a human fruit, you can probably shrink down to human size. So there's one angle where he could actually fit on the ship and rejoin the crew. Or if he has a shape-shifting owl fruit, which I'm saying owl because the Biblo connection, and also Loki has like wing tattoos. And you go back to Kaido, he had like a scale tattoo, and he ended up having a dragon fruit. So now that Loki has like a bird-related tattoo, it makes me think bird. Well, if you have a shape-shifting owl fruit, which the owl that we've met on Elbaf can shrink things down or enlarge things, or both, depending on the origins of it, but whatever. Maybe Loki has like an advanced version of that, like the Biblo no Mi, which I was kind of jokingly calling it. But yeah, I don't know. Those are my two ideas. Any response or better theories than those? Because this I think is super duper important.
Yeah. When I think about Loki and his devil fruit, I do like the idea that Loki has a fruit that runs in the same vein as Luffy's fruit. And the main reason I like that is because Loki, when he was introduced, he initially called himself the Sun God. Kind of a hefty title, right? But we later learned that the Sun God isn't just a power, it's an ideology, right? The Sun God of Destruction, the Sun God of Liberation. Elbaf has many variants to it. But if Loki really meant that, then one of the main properties of the Sun God was the stretchiness. So I would love it if Loki had, the Gomu Gomu or the Sun God Nika fruit, or just maybe even a double up on what Luffy has. And the thing is with Loki, he is very much a Luffy-like character, right? Luffy idolizes Shanks and Roger. Loki idolizes Rocks, right? They're two sides of the same coin, I would say.
Yep.
I mean, even the whole thing where, they love animals, they befriend animals, and then
they
the
eat
whole
a lot,
thing where...
and then heal quickly. Remember how it said it would take Loki a month,
yep.
And he's already up?
He's already up. He's ready to fight. And then the whole thing where Loki also messes up names, just like Luffy, right? I think he called him Lugi when he first met him, and that's what Luffy generally does to other characters. Like, there's so many things that just run parallel. So if Loki had a fruit that mimicked Sun God Nika, I would think that would be beautiful. And for more reasons than one, but if Loki had, like, let's say, the Sun God Nika fruit, but a variant of it, I think that'd be perfect, because right now, Luffy has only really utilized the rubber aspects of the Sun God. I've always thought that was kind of weird, ever since he obtained Gear 5th, because initially, when Luffy had, like, Gear 1, Gear 2, Gear 3, he had these abilities like Red Hawk, Red Rock, that incorporated fire in some way, and that was supposed to be like, Ace's will coming in, right? He remembered his brother, boom, he just brings out fire. But now that we have the explanation that Luffy's a Sun God, it's like, no, like, that's not just Ace, that is his actual power, right? Luffy should be able to use fire all the time. So I would love it if Loki was the fire version of Sun God Nika, right? Luffy's the stretchy version, Loki's the fire. That's why initially I really enjoyed... I don't know if I'm sure you remember this, but like people were tossing around the Surtur idea, right? Loki's the fire giant. That is why I really enjoyed that. But if we wanted to bring it in verse, we could say, oh, like Loki's also a sun god, but he's the dark version of the sun god. He's the sun god of destruction. I think it'd be great if there were like two versions of that fruit. And maybe when Shanks attacked Who's Who, like you said, like Shanks did a switcheroo, right? Maybe there were two devil fruits he had, and Shanks just took one of them, because the other one was eaten by Loki, perhaps. I think that'd be pretty awesome. And, when Loki and Luffy fight together, they're bringing out their own aspects of what they believe the sun god is. Right? Luffy's the freedom, Loki's the destruction. Yeah.
I love that. And it's funny because that whole line about how, like, oh, is the sun god the destroyer, or is he the liberator, or however they put it, right? It's like, which one is he, good or bad kind of thing? Because the world, or like first world, second world, third world, like those worlds end when Nika appears. So it makes sense that some people be like, well, is he the destroyer because the world is ending, quote unquote, or is he the savior because he's coming to, stop a great wrong that's happening? And I've always interpreted that as, and I still think this is accurate, but I've always interpreted it as like, no, there's only one Nika. It's just that like your perception of him depends on like where your allegiance lies, right? Like if you're with the world government, you're gonna say he's the god of destruction. If you're with the the downtrodden, you're gonna say he's the god of liberation, right? But and I still think that's true in the sense of like Luffy's the only true Nika. No matter what happens with this fruit, like he's gonna be the true one because he has the right will for it. But it would make sense for Oda to kind of juxtapose that by having Loki be a more destroyer version of it, not because he is like the true Nika destroyer god, the sun god of destruction or whatever, but it's just to kind of juxtapose as like, yeah, they're like Oda will make a destroyer version and a liberator version, but it's not because they're both Nika, it's just to show that like, hey, this destroyer one, like, even though Loki is probably a good guy at heart, obviously a lot of people think he's bad and he wants to destroy the world and stuff, it would kind of show, like, hey, even if you have sun god powers, it doesn't mean you're actually the sun god. Like, you're only the sun god if you're doing what Luffy's doing, right? And it would kind of show how one's the right version and one's wrong. But what would be beautiful is that Loki does believe he's the sun god. He already called himself that. Luffy is going to reject that title. He already has kind of done that a little bit where he's like, yeah, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, I'm not that guy. I don't know. And so I think that'd be a cool juxtaposition just where, yes, there are two in a lot of people's eyes, but one is clearly a fake one, even though he's lying about being it. And then one is the true one, even though he won't say it. And so there's just a cool little comparison between the two.
Yeah, no, I like that. And one thing that could come out of this too is that, by seeing Loki fight, Luffy could learn more about his own abilities. And by seeing Luffy fight, Loki could learn more about his. Like, I think both versions of the Sun God, if there's two of them, they could teach each other something about themselves, which would be kind of fun. Like, imagine Luffy's the stretchy one, and then Loki's like, oh, like, you can do that? Like, let me try it. Luffy sees Loki with fire everywhere, and Luffy's like, wait, you can do that? Like, let me try that too.
And you go back to the Oars parallel, right, where Loki is very clearly like he's in a cold place, locked up with chains, has horns. Oars has been mentioned a bunch. There's definitely something going on.
Oh yeah.
And Oars stretched in Thriller Bark right now. It's not because he actually had the fruit. Moria was cheating with a different fruit, right? He was using the Shadow Fruit to do Shadow Revolution and forced his body to stretch. But because of that connection, it would make sense that Loki can also stretch at some point. And yeah, it would be cool if they're just like, wait, you can do that? I've never even thought of that. And like you said, maybe Loki has like more true sun god powers, so he can use fire or something to a greater degree. But then maybe Luffy, like maybe his imagination takes over and he's like, well, I can do that too. And just because he's Luffy, like who cares? Like just let him do whatever Loki's doing. I think that'd be really cool. I like that idea.
Yeah, no, I really enjoy it. I feel like one way or another, Loki did eat something, because people are saying, oh, like maybe Loki just said he ate it, but he didn't. I think Loki definitely ate a devil fruit. I think there's a reason why they kept him in chains, right?
Sea stone chains.
Sea stone chains. Like, that is not cheap. It's not easy to find. It's really valuable material. And plus, the giants have apparently fought Loki as well in the past, right? Oh, he can beat all the giants here. Like, that's not something you just gotta throw around, and you don't know if he has a devil fruit or not. I feel like they all know.
Yep.
And I could totally see him having that fruit. And maybe that's why, like, after so long, like, people didn't think the fruit was around because they thought Loki had it.
Yeah, because also Loki, like, the whole Herald thing happened 14 years ago, but Loki didn't get locked up till 6 years ago. So there's, like, an 8-year gap where he's still, like, not captured after his wrongdoing. And it's like, well, why, how? Like, why didn't Shanks do it till later? It's like, well, maybe he was just too strong for a while. Like, like with his fruit and how strong he was, maybe it took... like Elbaf had to really make a plan to do it. Like all of them had to work together, and they had to go buy the chains. Because you brought up how, like, I mean, sea stone's not easy to get, and especially massive chains like they're using on Loki. You know what I mean? Like it's one thing to tie up Luffy or somebody with sea stone chains. To tie up Loki, that's like, I don't even. I mean, you got to sell a lot of Atom wood, to make that happen. So. So yeah, I think he definitely ate the fruit. So whatever that fruit was in the chest is definitely his. But then I'm wondering if Shanks just somehow pulled a fast one and was like lied about it. It's like, oh no, he did, like told the government, no, I got it. Oh, like Luffy ate it, but that's not actually what happened. It's like a fake one. I don't know. There's a lot of different ways that could work, I think.
Yeah, and I still kind of wonder, like, does Shanks still visit the Holy Land? Like, does he still have to constantly lie about this? Because it'd be really awkward if, like, but Shanks goes to the Holy Land and Luffy's bounty poster gets posted and they see Gear 5th and they're like, oh, Shanks, about that fruit, man. Like, what happened back? Like, you really fumbled the bag.
Mm-hmm. And that was a big thing that I was, like, a big reason why I was hoping that Shanks was the one who visited the Gorosei, which technically is still possible if we're being honest. Like, I know that was a big part of the Shamrock theory. Theoretically, it could still be Shanks. Like, you know, we haven't gotten a full confirmation other than, you know, his little bit of scar not peeking over his forehead, but I feel like Oda could easily just throw us for a loop a second time by being like, oh, guess what? That was Shanks. I was lying. Because if that was him, that's the perfect time for him to be like, oh yeah, I gotta talk to you about a certain pirate. Monkey D. Luffy has the Nika fruit. You know, it's like that wasn't the Gomu Gomu. That was the Nika fruit the whole time. And then they're like, wait, what? Like, that to me would make sense. Now, obviously, with it being Shamrock. Honestly, Shamrock could say the same thing. Like, what if Shamrock went and met Shanks and was like, hey, what really happened with all this? And Shanks told him, like, oh, yeah, I guess I can tell you now. Luffy's got the Nika fruit, and
yeah,
Shamrock's
cat's out of the bag.
Yeah, and so Shamrock went back and relayed the message, basically. I think that would actually work really well. But we'll see. I love this legendary fruit mystery that Oda's created.
There's a lot of mysteries here, man. I mean, it's not just that. It's like, oh, well, Loki joined the crew, Sanji conquers Haki, Chopper, Kureha. And then the last mystery we didn't even touch on yet, but King Harold, man.
Yep.
Is he transformed in that panel? Is he normal and that's just his mustache and armor? Where are you at?
It's hard to say, man. I gotta say, it is like if you're talking here, I guess I can jump over to the actual panel. If you're talking about this one where we see him like stab like a silhouette here, like since he clearly doesn't have like the big like vampire wings, the bat wings, whatever you want to call them, like I don't think he's transformed here, because like these little hooks right here, like he already had that in his shirt that he was like wearing normally. Yeah. Right. And up here, like I think this is definitely his mustache, because if it was like his horn, it would be a little bit higher up. But so I don't think he's transformed there because he would have the wings. But something that I believe Smooth Weeb was the first one who commented it in my reaction. But what if like Harold had the reverse Domi Reversi happen? Like, what if he was already bad, and then Emu used the Domi Reversi and he became good? And that's what
he turned him white. Okay.
Yeah, or even, and that's something that I brought up, is like, I don't know if it would necessarily mean that they have to go, like they have to change colors every time, but I kind of think back to like Usopp with Perona, where he was so negative already that he just wouldn't be affected. Like he was just the same, right? And so I don't know if he would necessarily turn into like an all white like Gear 5th kind of version, but maybe it just turns him into like a dialed down version of himself that he already was. Like I don't know if he would look that different per se, or maybe that happening is why he got rid of his horns. Is like because right now maybe he's bad, and then that happened, and he's like, wait, I've done so many wrongs. Like let me rip out my horns. Like I could see a lot of different options there, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like Oda's doing a good job of making this a good mystery, even with the information we have.
Yeah, it's funny. I threw up a poll, right? I was like, hey, like, what's up with King Harold? I posted that poll here on YouTube. I got 3,000 votes so far. Just posted it 12 hours ago. I asked, like, is it a demon transformation with horns and wings, or is it nothing? It's just the stash and armor. And believe it or not, the poll is split pretty much down the middle.
Wow.
53% say it's a demon transformation and 47% say it's nothing. Like, that is how good this mystery is. Like, you can't, crazy. You don't really know, right? Like, people are saying, oh, like, why would Oda silhouette it if there was nothing going on? Like, that's really mysterious, right? I think Oda definitely played his cards well with this one. And sometimes I feel like people are like, it's obvious, it's blah blah blah, but it's like, no, it's not obvious. Like that's why the poll is split. And I feel like that is what Oda's definitely going for, right? He wants to keep us guessing. He wants to keep us on our toes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm also curious, like, you look at this panel, and, like, I think he clearly doesn't have his horns at this point. So, like, this is post horn removal. I don't know what that surgery's called, but whatever it is, whenever he did that, like, he already lost his horns there, but yet his people are stabbing him, right? And so it's confusing in the sense of, like, if he did go through a Domi Reversi transformation, like that made him go from bad to good, then it wouldn't have happened right in this moment, because it probably would have happened well before, whenever he tore his horns out, right? So, like, and he tore his horns out and then had portraits made of him and stuff like that. So that wasn't. It's not like he tore it out then immediately got stabbed. It's like these are separate things. At least I feel like. So I guess I'm curious, like, and I guess I should add this. And if he got. And maybe if he did become good, but then maybe if they broke in and did another Domi Reversi and made him bad again, well, he would have the horns again, I think. I mean, we don't know all the rules, but we saw that Dorian Brogy, grew some horns or whatever. Like, everyone has horns and wings and all this stuff whenever they turn bad. So I feel like he would look a little different if he turned bad as well. So I feel like in this moment with the silhouette, I don't think a transformation happened either way to him. So why, and if that's true, maybe I'm wrong, but if that's true, why do you think they're stabbing him? I mean, could it be that, like, I almost want to say that all these giants had a transformation happen, because all of them have horns now, if you see that. Like, every single one of them has horns, but they don't have the wings or anything. So I don't know if there's maybe more to it. So I don't know.
I don't think the guards are transformed. I mean, the horns, like, we knew that ancient giants existed here in Elbaf already.
Mm-hmm.
And then plus when we got to the throne room with Road, we did see a couple of skulls with horns as well.
Okay.
So I think that's just them. I think they're normal. And with King Harold, yeah, like I'm on the fence with this one. I could see it being a demon form. I could see him being normal. But regardless, though, Scopper and Shanks, they eventually do sense ominous hockey from the castle.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this is, King Harold as his normal form, and then after he gets stabbed, that then brings out the Domi Reversi form. I could see that being the case. Maybe the hockey comes from a Holy Knight as well. But as far as why they're stabbing him, I mean, there could be a scenario where King Harold wanted them to kill him, maybe to stall Imu's plans, or maybe the guards, they feel the same way that Loki feels, right? Loki's like, hey, we're breeding a bunch of idiots, right? Like, they're just, they're peace-loving kids. Like, what are we doing here? Like, Harold is bending the knee to the WG, which isn't true. Like, Imu wants soldiers, not school children. So one way or another, King Harold is lying to all of Elbaf, and he's also lying to Imu. He's lying to both teams, which doesn't make sense. Maybe he's doing it to protect Elbaf. Like, oh, like, if I tell these idiots, they're gonna say something, and then Imu's gonna get mad. So I guess it's better this way. Like imagine if you're Emu, right? You hear the rumors in Elbaf, and people are saying, oh, I hate that King Harold is following the world government, and then Emu's like, oh, okay, so he's doing our plan. But in reality, Harold is doing the exact opposite. Right. So maybe these guards are like, okay, we don't want this. We don't want to work for the WG. We don't want to follow their whims. We don't want to build schools. And this could be like an actual mutiny. Right, like we saw Gunko do the first plank walk in the entire series with their arrows. Maybe this is one of the first mutinies besides, Davy Jones. I would like that a lot.
That's very interesting, and it's funny because I was going back, and we have this scene there at the end where it's like, that day the massacre at the castle took place. Elbaf's most beloved king, Harold the Benevolent, lost his life, and we see a giant like pounding on the door, saying, let us out, who closed the gate, help. And so, I'm guessing is that more so Loki, like, getting revenge? But actually, I don't think it's just that, because, like, you see here where Jarl has the sword go through his head, and, like, if this guy who's screaming help, if that's just because Loki's mad at his dad getting stabbed, well, then why is Jarl getting a sword thrown through his head? You know what I mean? Like, and that's Harold's sword, which is really important.
Harold's sword, yeah.
So it makes me think that Harold was fighting back. And I feel like Loki versus Harold happened. Like, I don't think all these guys stabbing Harold here, like, I don't think that was a killing blow. You know what I mean? Like, I think after this, Harold was able to react to it. But then you got to ask, well, like, this guy who's screaming for help, is that because Harold is, like you said, maybe it's a mutiny and Harold's like, oh, now I'm going to kill all of you for doing that? Is it just because Loki and Harold were fighting and there was just so much action that these guys were just getting cooked just by being near them from the amount of hockey and all that stuff? Or, I don't know, is there even more to it? We also see this lock break, right? Or come undone before somebody walks in to the fruit that's been waiting in there. So I feel like there's a lot of like loose ends here where I'm like Harold and Loki fought, but I don't know who these guys are scared of. You would think it's Loki who went and got the chest in there, but like Loki didn't go because he wanted that fruit. You know what I mean? He was summoned. Because like if he wanted it and he was like saying like maybe if we had multiple instances of him saying he wanted that fruit, then I could believe, he would go in there and go get it. But he didn't say that, so it feels like there's another party involved here who was actually after the fruit and caused this whole thing. So I don't know, man.
Definitely think there's another party here. And I think it also goes back to what Shanks was alluding to, right? Saying, like, I should probably talk to King Harold before, something bad happens. Let me see. What are his exact words?
We couldn't speak freely in the Holy Land. Now that we're both in this country, I really want to talk to him before it's too late.
Yes, so I think Shanks maybe caught wind of a Holy Knight plot. Maybe there's a Holy Knight that does not like King Harold, that is acting rogue. I do not think Emu has any part to play in this.
Okay.
I believe that this is the work of a rogue Holy Knight. Because as it stands, like, when you go back to Shamrock and Sommers and even Emu's dialogue, they really made it seem like Harold fumbled the bag. It wasn't on them.
Right.
Like, Harold is the one who messed up. And then for Shamrock, it's like, oh, yeah, like, they would have visited this guy's grave. Like, they must have been good friends. I think if I had to just spin my yarn on, like, something really wacky that has no real precedence, I think that there was a Holy Knight that we will meet during King Harold's flashback that really does not like him. It's going to be a family or a certain one guy kind of situation that just, they do not like King Harold. They do not like giants. They're kind of like me pre-Elbaf, right? They just hate these giant characters. And the fact that Harold is getting an audience with Emu, I think, is leading one Holy Knight to rebel behind the scenes.
Okay.
Because we do get, a mysterious character here in Elbaf. We get the ominous hockey. The doors are closed. Everybody in that room is dying. I think there's going to be a Doflamingo type of character here that is causing King Harold to lash out and fight the soldiers. I think that is what's going on. And like I said, I do not think any of the other Holy Knights have any idea what's happening here as well.
That's really interesting, because I think that would fit a little bit into, like, kind of like, I guess Mjosgard a little bit is kind of an example, although it's the opposite, where Mjosgard started liking a certain group and became rogue to help a certain group, being the Fishmen. It could almost be the opposite, where a God's Knight, maybe all the God's Knights have come to, like, appreciate the Giants because they want them on their side, right? They want the military force. Maybe they don't really care about the culture or anything, but they want the military force. So maybe a lot of the God's Knights or government like the Giants, but maybe one of them had just one bad instance with them. Racist. And maybe this could go back to the House of Lambs. Maybe it's one of the God's Knights that came from there, like one of the orphans. And maybe while they were in Elbaf, they, like, kind of became privy to a lot of what Harold was doing, or maybe they just didn't like the Giants. Maybe they were made fun of. I don't know what the reasoning would be. But maybe one of those orphans became a God's Knight and has just had an issue with Elbaf ever since. And maybe that's because... maybe that's something to do with Big Mom and Mother Carmel. Like, maybe they didn't like that Mother Carmel got kicked out or whatever. Maybe it's like a defense of Mother Carmel for that reason. Like, oh, well, if you guys hate Mother Carmel, then I hate you. I don't really know exactly how that would go, but I think that'd be a really good tie-in. I didn't even really think of that, because Shamrock is kind of the one that I think of the most whenever I think of, like, a God's Knight that could be involved here, because it would be like, kind of like what we saw earlier in Elbaf, where they're like, oh, hey, there's a red-haired God's Knight or whatever. Like, like he looks just like Shanks. Like, there'd be like a confusion there. But if you go look at the silhouette, whenever it says like this is the forbidden devil fruit passed down with an Elbaf, I feel like that silhouette looks like none of the people involved that we know. Because like if it was Harold, he'd have the little hooks. If it was Loki, he'd have like longer hair that would be like more flowing. Like we'd be able to see that. He has horns as well. It doesn't look, like Jarl. It doesn't look like they have horns at all. So it's not any of the other giants. It doesn't really look like. I mean, I guess it could be a guy in a hood, so it could be any God's Knight theoretically. But it's not like a perfect hood. But I don't know. I feel like it could be anybody. Honestly,
I think whoever is causing all of this, my guess is that we will meet them next chapter. I do not think we'll know it's that person yet, but I think we'll meet them next chapter. I think this is going to be the long con 109-year plan that this person is cooking up. For all we know, it could be even like another giant, an advisor even. Or like maybe we learn that King Harold has an assistant. And, like, they seem really good, or, they're kind of just like, ooh, like, I'll follow King Harold, but I don't like him. I think that's going to be it. I think there's going to be, like, a weird traitor, whether it's against the Holy Knights, whether it's against Harold specifically. I think we're going to be that one oddball next week.
Could this potentially tie to Mosa somehow?
Yes, I think we will meet Mosa during this flashback.
Like... Because Loki said, like, he's never met Mosa. And, like, depending on how this situation went down with Harold, it could be a situation where, like, let's say this is Mosa who's causing all this. What if Mosa, like, snuck in, took the fruit, left, and Loki never even saw Mosa? And so that's like, the irony of this all is, like, what if this person, if it is Mosa who did this, what if they did it all, like, kind of trying to help Loki, almost? You know what I mean? Like they took down Harold because, like, I want you to be the leader. I want you to be the great one or whatever. It could always be like I don't know, some connection there. Like, I don't know if this would be Mosa exactly, but Mosa being connected to this person at a bare minimum, I think would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be awful for Loki, though, man. His one friend did all of this. No. I think Mosa's going to be a good guy. I feel like they might be too timid based on their dialogue.
But if Harold was actually bad and Mosa stepped in to stop Harold and that eventually would come out to help Loki, like, yes, Loki would be like... It'd be... I don't know how he would feel exactly, but I don't know if that would mean Mosa's bad. You know what I mean? Like, it could be all good intentions. Like, hey, if we let Harold keep doing what he's doing... He would have given that fruit away to the government. He would have given Elbaf's forces to the government. Like, the whole world would be cooked if I didn't stop Harold. Like, if that is whoever this person's, like, goal is, I think they're a good person then. And that would be the really interesting twist in all this.
Yeah, but also, going back to Mosa's dialogue, Loki said that if he was there, it could be a separate instance, right?
Right.
He said if he was there, he would kill everybody in that room. But Mosa's response to killing everybody was, that's going a little bit too far. So I do not think that Mosa would orchestrate this, because it seems like Mosa is, like, adverse to death. Like, even if it's for the greater good, because Loki says, oh, if you don't kill everybody, they're going to come back later for revenge. Even to that point, Mosa was like, no, I wouldn't go that far. So that's why I'm like, I don't think Mosa could orchestrate this.
That's a good point, but I could also maybe reason that, like, Mosa only wanted one person to die, and not all these people. Like, Mosa may have done it in the least lethal way in their mind.
Okay.
But then everybody died because Loki showed up. You know what I mean? Like, maybe Mosa had a whole plan to not have a bunch of bloodshed and to do this in secret and to save people. But then, Loki's like, well, now that I'm here, that plan that ain't happening. And that would be kind of the cool, like, it would suck for Loki, like you said, but it would be kind of cool if Loki's, like, talking about how, like, oh, I would have taken all those people out if I was there. And it's like, well, you did. Like, you just don't know exactly the full story. Like, you were the one who took out all these people. And, like, whenever Mosa talks about the true fear, I feel like that could be, like, taking out Harold. It's like, maybe that's, like, Mosa really doesn't like death, so the true fear to Mosa is killing somebody. And that happened with Harold, and then everything else, fell down. I don't know. I do agree that Mosa being the cause of this is unlikely, but I think Mosa being involved in it is very possible. Like even being aware of the plan, or I could also see Mosa being on the opposite side, where maybe Mosa knew this person and told them not to do it, and that leads to a lot of the debate, maybe.
I do like the theory that Mosa is. I think the theory is waning on me a lot with the most recent couple of chapters, but initially I thought that Mosa was going to be in the castle still, like they were locked in the tower that fell off when Scopper and Luffy were fighting.
Oh yeah.
So like maybe Mosa was trapped in there, and it's like like maybe I mean that still could be the case. There's nothing that disproves that right away, but I'm like like what if Mosa, like you said, is involved in this situation and they were actually on King Harold's side. They knew this whole plot and they wanted to stop it, but Mosa got locked in a room and they couldn't leave until most recently, where Scopper and Luffy were fighting, having their little play test, and then the tower broke and now Mosa is free, and that's why Mosa called Loki again and said, hey, like it's happening again, not just because like anything in the Holy Land, but because of what's happening here in Elbaf. They sense the ominous hockey, they sense a familiar presence, and they're like, I gotta do something. Which wouldn't make sense in some instances, but I do like the idea a lot. Mosa being a herald advisor, a good guy.
I really like you bringing up that piece of the castle that fell off, because Oda like dedicated a small little panel to showing that part of the castle falling. Yeah, and I was like, oh, is that gonna fall on the people in the Sun Realm? Is that like what, or in the realm of the dead rather? Is that like what? Like Oda, there's no way you're focusing on that just for no reason. At least that's how it felt.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to the Toki arrow scar thing, like I said, a lot of people were pointing as that as a theory, because we had like a hyper focused panel on like where she got hit by the arrow. So it's kind of the same thing, but I don't know. I guess we'll see.
It's funny.
Before we go, give me some of your predictions for the next chapter. Do you think this flashback is going to continue, and we're like the full next chapter is just going to be a King Harold flashback? Do you think? Like, are we gonna get the truth to Harold soon, or is it just gonna be, because Oda kind of skipped over it, right? Like we got a little bit, but we still don't know the full story. So what's your predictions for the next chapter?
It's funny because it feels like one of those moments where Oda's like, hey, like here's how King Harold's story ends, but to have this make sense, we have to go back to the very beginning. It's like one of those instances. I think we'll spend the next couple of weeks in this flashback, which is really funny too. I keep on saying funny, but Hardin said, hey, Loki, you need to explain this in 3 minutes. And then boom, like weeks and weeks and weeks of just one story. It's like Dragon Ball Z, like Goku versus Frieza. The planet's exploding in 5 minutes. We spend the next like 5 years on that arc. It's like, okay, cool.
Well, it's a good thing time moves slower on Elbaf, right? So now they got some extra time.
They got some time. I do think that we will spend all of next chapter with Harold.
Okay.
I would love it. We talked about it earlier. I would love it if we saw Dr. Kureha. Some Holy Knights. I think we might even see, here's another one we didn't talk about. I think we could see Hardin's mom even. Because right now, King Harold is a rapscallion. He's a scumbag, right? That's what the chapter says. He needs to get humbled. He needs to get changed. He needs to turn into a benevolent guy. And it's kind of like Judge, maybe love is what he's missing. And he's going to meet Hardin's mom. And he's going to start changing a little bit. He's going to start, wanting to educate kids or opening up Elbaf, which I think is one of the main reasons why he wants to do that in the first place. Like opening Elbaf up and teaching kids, like that is a very non-Elbaf standard way of living and progressing. And we do know that Hardin's mom is not from Elbaf.
Right.
So I think that is where he's going to, be taught all of this. So I think we're going to go through a whole love story. We're going to see him lose his love. We're going to see the Council of Elbaf that did not allow Hardin's mom to go into the castle. I would love just to see the inner workings of Elbaf as a whole. And I'd be shocked, seeing King Harold as he is now. Like, who told this guy no? Like, hey, your wife can't come into the castle. Like, who said that to him? Who did he listen to, man? That's kind of crazy. I feel like you wouldn't tell Harold no, at least back then.
Right. Yeah, that is especially now that we're seeing how much of a boss he kind of was back in the day. You know what I mean? Like you'd have to be really strong to or have some kind of influence to be able to stop him. And I don't know, maybe Jarl and Yorl or something. I don't know. Maybe they came in and had some words. I do want to say, if we have a full chapter of Harold flashback, it's going to be really embarrassing that we already have more flashback for Harold than we do Kaido. You know what I mean? Like, that's...
Yeah.
That's like... It's tough.
See, I still hold out hope for Kaido. I do not think he's dead. I feel like if we ever get him again, we could get more. Maybe we, people are saying that, Harold looks like Kaido.
Yep.
He looks like Kaido here too. Loki's sporting the same jacket as Kaido, the fish scales. Like, there's a lot of things that look like Kaido here. And I don't think it falls back to, Oda only knows how to design one type of character. I don't think that's it. I think Oda knows. Kind of like the whole, like, is King Harold a demon or is he a person? I think Oda knows, like, how readers will generally interpret things. So we could even get, like, a weird Kaido origin story here.
That's like, exactly what I was about to say.
Dude, if you are a giant like King Harold, do you know how easy it would be to, this is going to sound kind of crazy, to impregnate an entire village
I mean,
humans?
You see him in this chapter, like, hey, where's your princess? Oops, like, he's just crashing into the castle, which...
Yeah, like, imagine, dude, he could do, like, a drive-by, like, splash zone on a village, and then, boom, it sounds absurd, but he could genuinely be, like...
splash zone.
Genghis Khan, dude. Like, imagine being just a regular person, and then you're like, oh, it's raining. And then you're like, wait a minute, what is this?
Wait,
it's not.
Isn't that, like, Kaido's inspiration is Genghis Khan? Or part one of his inspirations, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah.
So, like...
when I look at Kaido, I just see, like, Danny Trejo, but yeah.
Yeah, same. But that is interesting you brought that up, because, like, Harold, by like sheer virtue of having kids with two different women, that Harold's already in kind of a league of his own a little bit in One Piece, at least by like the way I see it. Like, how many families do we know where a dad had children with two separate women? Do we know any? Like, obviously Big Mom's the opposite, like, clearly.
Yeah, Big Mom's the opposite.
So, but it would kind of make sense, like, with Big Mom and Kaido being so connected, if Kaido's dad was essentially Big Dad.
Big Dad, that's so funny.
I mean, I like it.
I love that. No, I like it, yeah.
Yeah. Now, the one issue I'll say is that Kaido's 59, which is younger than Loki. So that would mean that he went and had another kid after Loki, and that would actually make sense that maybe he didn't tell anybody. Like, maybe it was like a secret bastard child, and that's why he was in vodka, is maybe he had him, and he's like, well, they're not going to let him in the castle or whatever, because for whatever reason, let's just ship him out,
yeah.
And then vodka shipped him out to the government, which just continues the cycle, I guess. But all right, I think we've covered everything I wanted to cover today. So, Sai, you got anything you want to say to the people before we head out?
Yeah. I mean, as per usual, I just want to shout my own channels. Check me out over at Daksake on YouTube. You know how to find me. DAKS SAKE. Like, just type that in, you'll find me all over there. I'm a reoccurring person. I mean, it's my channel, actually, so you can find me over there. Also, I have a side channel called Redacted as well, where you're watching this current video. So yeah, just make sure to subscribe and show some love there. And thank you guys so much for watching all the way to the end. We really appreciate it, as per usual. It's because you guys watch these videos that Dax brings me back on. Until then, Dax just, like, locks me in the basement or something. Until I can see sunlight again. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you for getting me out of the Shien factories.
Yeah, I had you locked in Elbaf Castle until somebody knocked off the part of it, so you got freed. So
yeah,
so you're
like
welcome.
Mosa.
But I appreciate that, Sai, Dak, and everyone. Please make sure you follow my channels. Sai Duck is the most important one you got to follow. We also have just Sai. We have Sai Retcon. Do we have Sai Spoilers? I don't know the names anymore, but I know there's a whole Sai Network, which you can find down
whole
below.
Sai Network.
Make sure you subscribe to my channels that are all the Sai ones, obviously. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you, and have a good one.
Peace out, guys.